It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Dakota Wesleyan Tigers head softball coach, Coach Tommy Down. How are you doing today?
Hey, how are we doing? I'm doing great. A little jet lag from our spring trip, but I'm ready to go.
That's good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started coaching in college softball?
Yeah, when you're told your career's over going to the top level, I just wasn't done, and I wanted to give back to the game, and I wanted to be a part of the game somehow. And coaching was always a big thing for me. My family, everybody in my family coached. My brother, you know, we got to the Mariners and he got cut as well, and he was coaching, so it just kind of was a fit to, I got into summer baseball with him, got into doing, hitting camps and all of that, and I just kind of fell in love with the coaching part of it because it gave me a piece of the game that I was, that was taken away from me. So it was a big deal, and I just kind of it blossomed from there after, so many years. So
What was that experience like for you getting to play and try out for an organization like the Kansas City Royals?
um, you know, dream come true, lifetime. I mean, it sucks to get to that point and get it taken away from you. But I mean, obviously it was a big step for me in life. Battling through college to get to that point and to get a tryout to do that was awesome. It was amazing. And, I would never downplay that. I just, don't enjoy my shortcomings sometimes, but it was an awesome experience. Absolutely.
Of course, how did you take that experience of trying out for a major league team like the Kansas City Royals into where you are now as a coach?
It just kind of, this game is such a tough game because the failure rate's so big. I mean, if you go 3 for 10 in basketball, you're probably not playing. So it's just, having that mindset of understanding that, to have a good routine, to keep fighting, to keep the negativity out of your brain, and, to be able just to continue to fight through everything. And, when your opportunities come and you get, capitalize on them. And as a player, to coach, I understand the ins and outs and the mental side of the game, which is such a big deal. I mean, physical is great. I mean, if you're a specimen, you can do a lot of things, but the mental side is going to control everything. So for me, making that transition from being a player to a coach was a big deal for me because I've had those experiences. I've had those thoughts. I've had those feelings. I couldn't tell you how many times things got so tough I wanted to quit in life and sports and whatnot. But guess what? You push through just like everything else.
What was that experience like for you going to Emerald Isle and getting to become an assistant coach?
Really it was a great fit for me. I was doing high school ball. I moved from the Oregon, Washington area that I lived the majority of my life to Arizona. And, I met up with Christy Ambrosi, that was a first year coach there at Embry-Riddle. Her and I we clicked very well. She was a, UCLA alum. We were on the same page about a lot of things, and it was just an awesome fit and a great opportunity for me to do what I do the best, and my sweet spot is, and that's recruiting, and that's the hitting side. And so, being there for 3 or 4 years, building that up, making basically a powerhouse out of it was a big deal for me. So again, it was an awesome opportunity.
How's that feeling like when you did get promoted to become the head coach there?
Either way, being a head coach in other, at other levels, and being an assistant at other levels, I really didn't care either way. I just wanted to be a part of the game, and I wanted to give back to the game. Obviously being the head coach, you have a lot more roles. And, I always tell people that, I'm not just a coach. I have several hats. I'm a counselor, I'm mom and dad, I'm all these things. So, it was a cool thing to be a part of and to do. And, obviously once you become a head coach and you're doing that a lot, it's hard to kind of go backwards. But again, it wouldn't bother me either way. I just would want to give back to the game.
Of course, what was that transition like for you from going from coaching baseball to getting into coaching softball?
At first, it was pretty tough. I mean, the verbiage, the communication, everything was different. I had 2 daughters, so that pushed me into fast pitch. And to be honest with you, 20 years ago, I would have never thought I would have been coaching fast pitch today. But, considering how fast the game is in fast pitch, and just I just kind of fell in love with the speed of the game, and I couldn't. There's no way I could go back to coaching baseball again. It's too slow, methodical, and I hate to say that, but that's the truth.
Of course, what was that feeling like when you got the job for Dakota Wesleyan and coming to Dakota Wesleyan?
Honestly, it was a just a perfect fit for me. I'm really big on, having support. I'm really big on communication, having that, you know, family feel, or, just with the town, the university, everybody's super nice in the Midwest, which I've never experienced before. I'm a West Coast guy. So that was just a great opportunity. And I knew that, this program needed to be, you know, maybe headed a different direction, and it was a big deal for me to come in and try to rebuild the program again a second time. And again, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed building a program and making it something. So I was really excited, and I'm just excited to see the growth of this place.
Of course, as you talked about that, what has that been like, obviously coming into a school like Dakota Wesleyan and rebuilding the program?
It comes down to having connections. It comes down to, people buying into the program, buying into the system, buying into, trying to keep the negativity out of the game and out of the team and the culture. And it's tough. I mean, it's always going to be a build. But once people buy in and trust on both sides of the fence, coaching and playing, a lot can happen. And you can have talent all day long, but I've seen it lose because they just don't, compete together. They don't play for each other. They're not selfless. So again, building that in the last 2 years, I've seen a lot of significant growth, especially with our younger players.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built so far as a head coach there?
I'm really big on, having, one-on-one talks, letting everybody know where they're at. I always tell people, if you don't know what we think of you, come in and sit down on the couch. Let's have a conversation. Even if it's tough, let's have a conversation. Because as a player, the last thing you want to do is not know where you stand, because that also causes, miscommunication. It causes negativity because people want to talk. So again, I'm really big on having all kinds of forms of communication. We started something called accountability partners, just so everybody can help support each other, keep each other, accountable for their actions, maybe mentor each other. Because I take basically a senior and a freshman, I kind of combine them all together all the way down. And it's really been a good thing for this program here. The girls really took it and ran. Again, it's a big deal when everybody comes together to communicate to be better, and that's how we get this to go forward.
As a head coach, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto the softball field at Dakota Wesleyan?
I was excited. I was excited to see all these new faces, different types of skill level here. I'm not, again, I'm a West Coast guy, been there my whole life. So the Midwest was just a different beast for me. I mean, there was a lot of things different here that I wasn't used to. But one thing I did like about the Midwest in this program is that everybody was really eager to learn, to take in information. They call me the West Coast coach, which I still can't figure out what that means. But it's just they really just took it and ran. They really wanted more information, and they wanted to be coached. And for me, that's a big deal, because sometimes on the West Coast, you get a lot of good summer ball coaches and programs, and you're basically grabbing these kids and they're plug and play. So again, to give back to coach, to get them to learn and maybe change some styles, was a big deal for me, and I took it and I loved it.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your players at Dakota Wesleyan?
Mental preparation, getting everybody ready, getting everybody on the same key, knowing who our opponent is, game study. I mean, we do a lot of, I'm always trying to find a niche, trying to find an angle to get into, to be able to compete with teams. For me, it's just making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, getting, like I said, getting themselves ready mentally and physically.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
Midland's tough. They've been tough the last 2 years, and they continue to bring in, transfers and good players. So they look really good this year. Northwestern's tough. I mean, they're just a very sound, solid team. Coaches have been there for 20 some years. So they obviously have their system running and running very well. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, this is one of the toughest conferences that I've seen in the country.
Of course, what is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Midland comes to home versus going to North?
Well, I can tell you this: we support all of our programs here at D-Dub, and they come out and they pay us back, and they come into our stands, and I can tell you it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling. We were just in Florida last week, and looking around, I was shocked to see that we had 30 plus people in our stands the entire every game that we were at, and most teams only had maybe a handful. So it was really cool to see that piece of support for everybody being that far away from home.
Of course, what was that atmosphere like, of course, playing in that tournament in Florida?
It was really just I mean it was just a high. It was exciting. I mean, just to have that many people cheering for our players and supporting them, and it just felt great as a coach, and the players absolutely loved it. I mean, just having that push and having just everybody there to see what we're doing, how we're doing it, just made everybody excited to be a part of this.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate softball?
Well, I can tell you that the recruiting piece is one of my sweet spots to do, but as a player coming forward into the next level, it's tough. I mean, it's expensive. You got to put yourself out in front of college coaches. You can't be afraid to get the nose. I mean, there's a lot of coaches that look at certain things and maybe they don't respond to everybody. And you know, uh, if I was to say anything to an athlete coming to the next level is, you got to put yourself in front of schools that where you want to be, and hopefully you get a yes. And unfortunately, mom and dad have to foot the bill to travel all over the schools that you want to go to. But I mean, that's just the gig of it. Softball is not cheap.
As a head coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes when out on the road recruiting?
High character is a big deal for me. I mean, I don't micromanage and I don't want to, so I have to know that when I'm not looking, what are these players like? What are they doing? Are they good people? Are they selfless? Outside of that piece, then the other piece for me is the aggressiveness. I can't teach that part of the game. Are they aggressive? Are they going to run bases hard? Do they have high IQ? Those things truly matter. So again, those two parts to me are the mains for that.
What is it like as a head coach seeing those prospective student athletes come on that official visit and fall in love with Dakota Wesleyan?
It's awesome. I mean, Dakota Wesleyan for our doing their admissions and tours, they do a great job. I mean, I don't have to sell the school; they do a great job. I'm selling softball. I'm selling me as a coach. So I love to see the connection. I love to build the connection with these athletes, and hopefully they choose us. And again, like I said, I'm going to lose some, I'm going to win some, but it comes down to you know do you buy in? Do you trust? Do you have a connection with the coach? When you're with somebody for 4 years, you guys better get along or it's going to be a tough life.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Dakota Wesleyan jersey for the first time?
I get excited. I so much want freshmen to come in and compete because it's not always easy. Taking that jump is tough at any level. And to see them come out and get an opportunity to play or maybe even to start, it gets exciting for me because it's such a great feeling to have an opportunity young to step into a program and get some playing time.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen get those first at bats, first home runs, first hits?
It's really cool. I mean, it's again, like I said, buying into the process, trusting coaches, trusting our system, watching them immediately make an impact is a big deal for any program. I mean, there's some programs where they don't play a lot of freshmen, and at the end of the day, I'm looking for putting the best 9 players in the line because I want to win games. So when you see these younger players in there doing that, it's just exhilarating. It's awesome, awesome.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those seniors put on that uniform for the last time?
Tough, tough. We've just been having these conversations lately with a few of our seniors, and it's just I always tell them to, stop and look around and, take it all in, smell the smells, see the seas, talk to everybody, have that just second to look around because when it's gone and it's unfortunate, but, you try to give it all that you have and hopefully you can walk away with the game with no regrets. And that's what it's about, giving it all you have and knowing that you can walk away and be satisfied. And again, it's not easy. It was hard for me as a player, so I totally understand what that's like, but I really try to have a communication with them and try to have them take those little moments and take a second. Hey, this is our last fall practice. Hey, this is our last spring game. Take it in for a second. Enjoy this moment, breathe it all in. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like getting to see those seniors achieve those last moments, like last pitches, last home runs, last hits?
It's emotional. It's emotional. I try to hide my emotions as best I can, but I can tell you I haven't in the past, and I know this year is going to be really tough for me. Um, but again, it's exciting. It's such a good close to a one chapter and open to another, and I just hope that you know I can give back to them and they can reach back out to me after they're done and say, hey, coach, these lessons were great. It wasn't just about softball, it was about life lessons. And that's what I hope that we're getting and we're doing with these young athletes.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing your players go on and achieve great things, whether it's playing professional softball in Athletes Unlimited or going into the corporate world?
It's honestly, it's why I'm doing this. Because again, as a college coach, I don't get paid a ton of money. I don't have a great life living, when it comes to those things. But what I do take out of it is when players do reach back out to me and go, hey, you know, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. And I get excited. I'm like, this is really cool to see that I was a part of your journey and that you did all this and that you're doing all this. And I want to be a part, and I'm excited for these guys. So again, it's a really cool thing to have.
Was it like getting to see them go into coaching like you have?
I'm sorry, what was that again? Sorry.
Mhm. What is it like getting to see your players after leaving, going into coaching like you have?
It's good. I mean, I'm really big on giving back to the game. I'm really big on, trying to support, people that want to get into my industry. And I actually have one right now that I'm trying to help, be a GA next year. And I just think that I tell them all the time, take as much in as you can, be a student of the game. Listen sometimes before we talk. I mean, really try to look at every aspect of the game. And again, I'm big on the support piece. I always try to show videos, talk about what I see, what I think. And again, 26 years of coaching and I'm still trying to learn things. I mean, I want to, I don't ever want to tell myself, hey, I know everything, because I don't. I want to learn things. I want to constantly look at other coaches, styles, players, everything. So again, I'm always preaching that.
What have been some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far at Dakota Wesleyan as head coach?
Oh, we got lucky our first year and we broke a home run record. We broke a triples record. We were like four other records we were close to four other records to break. But we obviously didn't get all of our 50 games in because it was tough because of weather and whatnot. But already this year we're, what did we, 23 games in, and we broke the single game runs, single game hits. One of my players just broke the career run record. So again, not bad. We have a couple batters in the top 25 in the country in home runs. So very excited to see some great change in 2 years. And it's because they're buying in, and I just it's awesome.
Of course, as a head coach, and you talking about that, what has that been like? Obviously, seeing them break those records that have been set.
It gets emotional. I mean, I constantly tell them, I'm like, leaving your mark on this game is the best thing you can do. Putting yourself in the history books is, you know, saying, hey, I did this. I was a part of this. I maybe was a great player. I mean, those things matter as an individual. As a team, again, we're all a part of it. We're all with the journey. When people break those records individually and as a team. So again, it gets very emotional. It gets very emotional. I love to see their successes. I live for it, obviously, because like I said, that's the best part of this thing, is that I get to watch their successes out of it. So again, big deal for me.
What are some of your future plans for the Dakota Wesleyan program moving forward?
Putting D-Dub on the map for softball. I mean, that was one of my biggest, 5-year goals. Putting us on the map, becoming a powerhouse, building a dynasty here, which again, I think we're year two, we're close. I mean, this next fall will be my first full year of recruits, and we're about to see some changes. I'm really excited to see what this program looks like in, year three.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college softball?
Time management, it's a big deal. Mom and dad aren't there anymore, so everything's on you. You're an adult. Trying to be a part of that is a big deal. Using your resources, talking to your teammates, talking to your coaches, the people at the university. I mean, those things are what's going to get you on the right track, and you won't fall behind.
What advice would you give those softball players out there looking to go play on the next level of professional softball, whether it's Athletes Unlimited or overseas?
be a student of the game. Every day you have to put some time into it. I always tell people all the time, you didn't wake up one day just know how to tie your shoes or know how to do. You learned algebra. I mean, in 1 second. I mean, those things don't happen. It takes time. And it's all about hard work. I tell everybody all the time in life, everything we do, sports, jobs, relationships, everything's about work. And the more you put in, the better you're going to be, and put yourself up for a situation where you get an opportunity and you capitalize on it and something good comes out of it. So, I always tell people, no matter how many times you're told no, keep fighting. Don't give up. Continue to push forward, and eventually a door will open and you'll walk in.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to get into coaching after their playing career?
I always tell people, think about all the coaches you've had in your career, in your time. What kind of coach do you want to be? What helped you get to where you're at today? How was your best learning points with coaches, and be that coach? Be what the best part that you enjoyed. Because again, coaching is not always easy. I always tell everybody that, you have so many different personalities and walks of life that you really have got to be, a good communicator, and you have to have the good connections and learn people. You learn people, then you learn how to communicate to them, and then that you have that connection piece and the trust piece, right? Because without trust, you're not going to have a lot, right? So again, mentoring, that part of it, just understanding what you want to be as a coach, who you want to be as a coach.
What advice would you give those assistant coaches out there that are looking to become head coaches one day?
Find the right system for you. Make sure that you're in line to be in the sweet spot of what you know best. I mean, again, there's a lot of coaches that take on several roles, and I get that, but try to go into it going, hey, if I'm good at pitching, and that's my sweet spot, I need to be a pitching coach first, and then kind of build myself up through it. And again, like I said, there's every situation is different. Having a good connection with a head coach is a big deal. You always want support, and you always want to feel like there's a good line of communication, whether it's a tough conversation or not.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Kind of like what I've already said is, you have to know who you want to be, what you want to be as a team and as a program. You have to build a lot of it around positivity, because like I said, we're in a very negative game. You have to find ways to compete and make things tough, but then on the other hand, you have to make sure that we're celebrating little successes and constantly having building moments, getting that 1% better every day. A specific athletes that you're bringing in, that you want them to be able to make your team better. And then obviously being selfless is a big deal. So finding the right pieces, putting the right coaches around them. I can tell you right now, good coaches make head coaches better. It's just the way it is. Support. So again, that's a big deal.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Dakota Wesleyan softball program?
Well, we are on just about every social media. I'm big on Twitter. I use Twitter a lot for recruiting, just because it's been a great piece, because people put their videos on there, all their information. It's easy to connect to both. But yeah, yep, Coach Downs 42. That's my Twitter.
Thank you again, Coach Tommy Downs, for your interview, and best luck in future at Dakota Wesleyan as the head coach.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram and Brandon Sports Talk Twitter at talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Tony Downs, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.